Hey guys, it's Damien from Marketing Food Online. I hope you guys are having another great day as always. All right, this podcast, I'm going to cover something that I've been asked about quite often, and I've done only, I think, one YouTube video about this, but organic food production. And if you buy organic products to repackage, do you have to be certified in the facility that you're repackaging and handling the products? That is going to be the topic of this podcast, so let's get right to it. All right, guys. Okay, so let's get right into this topic. I get quite a bit of email and even questions on YouTube about it. But the idea of packaging and producing organic food products, of course, organic is a gigantic industry as a whole, being a global industry in the billions of dollars, of course. But when you're starting out from scratch, you may not understand the actual labeling process, what's required, what is allowed and what's not. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to break down the basics. I'm just going to explain really quick what exactly is organic certification, okay, and how does it work, and then I'm going to get into a little bit about packaging it, handling it, and understanding what you would need to have in order for you to actually repackage organic food products, or bring in a handful of organic ingredients and then creating an organic product from that. If you're actually doing a production facility or if you're producing a product instead of just repackaging. So there's a lot of different variables, but I'm going to break it down for you really quick and get right to the point as I always do. So organic certification. So what exactly is that? Okay, it's basically a process that makes sure that like food growers, people who handle organic food products are following specific guidelines and regulations that are actually set up by what came out in 1990 was the Organic Foods Production Act. So basically anyone who is packaging, handling, or even producing a product, they must be certified to sell products labeled kind of as organic products, okay? Now, there are a few variations of labeling that is actually allowed. Even if you're producing it in a facility that's not certified, there is a little bit of leeway, and I'll get into that shortly. So in essence, there is a handful of guidelines that were set out and regulations. And what it is really wanting to make the food as clean as possible. So setting aside pesticides, setting aside the use of GMOs or ionizing radiation and synthetic pesticides or fertilizers, usage of sewage or sludge or anything bioengineered, that needs to stay out of an organic product. So from the get-go, the product really needs to be as clean as possible. And it was a great thing that came out, the whole concept of organic growing and food, because there's a lot of products that are grown organically, and then they're actually broken down. They're used to create other food products in a final step or a final process, which has really nothing to do with its original state. So throughout that entire line of production, all of the ingredients going into an organic product would have to be organic, and of course following those guidelines. So the next thing I wanted to get into was, this was the main question that I actually received, was there was a food business that wanted to produce a food product that would be organic, okay? And they would receive the organic products and then repackage them. So the question was, is there any special certification or is there any special licensing, permits and that kind of thing when you're not producing the organic product, but you're kind of reproducing the product in a sense, right? And the answer to that is actually yes. If you receive a ingredient that is organic, okay, and the producer of that product gives it to you and they are certified organic with their facility, their processes, etc., you need to understand that your facility would need to also be certified as well. You would have to go through the same or similar certification process because of the fact that, let's say as an example, you bring in a line of ingredients and you're repackaging it in a facility that's not certified organic. There is a potential for cross-contamination. There's a potential for ingredients to get intertwined with other organic ingredients that you have in your facility that maybe you're just producing baked goods or some type of snack food or anything for that matter. They want to make sure that the facility itself is following the processing so the handling of the organic ingredients are not getting contaminated or cross-contamination from anything else in your facility, okay? So it is something that needs to be done to stay within the regulations and the guidelines set up by that Food Protection Organic Foods Act in 1990. So You want to make sure that your facility is certified, and of course, those who own it and run it and operate it, they'll go through that certification process. And you want to make sure that everything is in line in order for you to properly label the product as an organic product, okay? Now, this is something that, the next thing up is something that's really unique that a lot of course, if you go through the organic certification process, you would know this. But a lot of times if you're starting, you may not realize it. But the packaging that you actually use for your organic product has to also be organic ready in a sense. And the reason why I say that, it cannot be packaged in anything that would contain any type of synthetic fungicides, fumigants, or preservatives. So there is a lot of food, whether you realize this or not, a lot of food in the marketplace where the packaging itself goes through a process, okay? And even in some cases, the packaging has preservatives or it's been treated with certain types of chemicals to prolong the food. Now, when it comes to organic products, that is something that's not allowed, okay? So when you find the packaging, you got to understand that the packaging itself has to also be in line with the organic guidelines so that the product itself, which would include the product, the packaging, the whole 9 yards, everything about it has to be organic, okay, in order for that to be labeled that way. So next up, this is kind of the most kind of confusing part of it. When it comes to labeling an organic food product, okay, in order for a processed food, let's say, to be labeled organic, right, 95% of its ingredients must be produced organically. Okay, and by the way, this percentage is technically it's based upon the weight of the final product. Okay, so out of the weight of a 1 pound product, 95% of that 1 pound product has to be derived from organic food production. Now, if a product were to have, let's say, 50% organic ingredients, it can be labeled that on the front of the product as an organic item. You could still use organic ingredients in a product, but if it's less than 50% organic, that would have to be displayed only in the ingredient list in the back. Okay, so you can actually technically bring together a product that has quote-unquote organic ingredients, but if it's less than 50% of that, that would not be allowed to be labeled on the front of the package, but it could be listed in the ingredient, okay? Which, you know, if that's what you want to do and you're not looking to promote the product solely as an item that is 100% organic, which of course it have to be 95% or more, you can bring together a product with organic ingredients. You just can't label on the front. So lastly, the next thing I wanted to bring up, and of course I could sit here and talk all day about organic production, food production things, but these are the top kind of 5 things that are really super important. And of course, I like to get right to the point and sweet and short and simple with my podcast, so you understand the gist of what it is. And of course, you can get into it later, even in depth, if you wanted to contact me and get into doing some consulting work. We can work together on that as well. But the last thing I wanted to cover, and this was another part of a question that I received, was in regards to importing foods that would be certified organic. Okay. So basically, in order for foreign organic food products, right, to be sold as a quote-unquote organic product in the United States, it must come from a certified facility that's based upon according to the USDA organic regulations and certification guidelines, okay? That would be someone that's international. If you've got some type of international facility in another country, let's say, it would need to be following the same kind of standards and guidelines that the USDA for its organic products, because it's going to be sold within the United States. So it would need to be certified. So there are, for example, there's products certified by the Canada, European Union, and Japan that can be sold as organic within the U.S. because those countries are following those same guidelines, okay? Hopefully that makes sense. I'm trying to explain it as simplistic as possible. So all these different countries kind of fall in line with those guidelines, and that's perfectly fine, okay? But again, if you're bringing them physically into your facility in the United States to repackage, just make sure that your facility is, again, certified organic because of the processes that you're using to package them or produce a product, right? And it's not, to be honest with you, it's not rocket science. It's not a big deal to get these facilities certified. And I'll get into that in a separate podcast. There's actually what's known as certified agencies The USDA doesn't technically give out the certifications in a sense. It has to be done by a company, kind of a third party, if you will, another company that would audit your facility to check it out to make sure that you're following the guidelines, okay? And those facilities or those inspectors are all throughout the United States. So no matter what state you're in, you can contact and locate one and then have them come in. And basically you would set up your facility based on the guidelines, and they'll just check it off. So with that being said, I just want to keep it short and sweet. I wanted to kind of answer this through a podcast because I have had quite a few questions that are relatively the same about the organic labeling. So I hope this brings some understanding to the topic. And if you guys are, of course, in need of anything other than consulting, we have a lot of resources at marketingfoodonline.com. Nearly 400 videos now we have on YouTube that you guys can check us out. If you haven't seen our YouTube channel and you're just listening to our podcast, it's Marketing Food Online on YouTube. And look forward to talking to you on the next podcast. Take care. Thanks, guys.